Hi, everybody. Welcome. Welcome. We're just going to wait for a moment to get people situated, which means to get myself situated. Hope everyone's having a wonderful Wednesday. While we wait for everybody, I do like to do this little icebreaker chatbot. I think it's fun to do while we wait for folks to log in. So this is a little chatbot we have here. I'll make it a little bigger because you can't see it otherwise. It's an icebreaker chatbot. So we get three options. We can see a dad joke. We can see a picture of a cat, where we can see a riddle. So please, by the way, in the chat, it defaults to hosts and panelists. So please change that to everyone so everyone can see. But one of you, do you want to make a suggestion? What do you want to see? A dad joke, picture of a cat, or a riddle? No one is voting. Oh, is the chat enabled? Corey, I think we need to enable the chat just like last time.
I think I just did. Sorry, everyone. Thank you, Sean, for letting us know. It's okay. It's
Try again.
Disabled.
Try again in the chat. Dad joke, picture of a cat, or a riddle. All right.
There we go.
Hey, we got two cats. We got two riddles. We'll do both. Here's a picture of a cat. Oh, random picture of a cat. I will do a riddle next. Here's a riddle. What has to be broken before you can use it? Elizabeth, you're too fast. An egg. That's great. When I'm in webinar mode, I can't even think. I don't know how you guys come up with this answer. All right, let's do a dad joke, and then I guess we'll start the webinar. Dad joke. I asked 10 people what LGBTQ standard for, couldn't get a straight answer.
I kind of like it.
Yeah, I got a little nervous when I saw that joke. I was like, hopefully we're not going to offend anybody. Yep, love those dad jokes. Let's end with something to give everyone a pure giggle. Let's do another dad joke, hopefully. What do you call cheese that isn't yours? Nacho cheese. There we go. That's a classic dad joke. All right. All right, well, welcome everyone to this webinar. So happy that you could join us. Let me get into presentation mode. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. I'm going to move pretty fast. I know time is valuable. Really appreciate everyone's time here. Please ask questions. You can ask questions through the Q&A feature. You can ask questions in the chat now that the chat is enabled. And we'll keep an eye on that. My esteemed colleague, Corey Richards, is also on the line, and she's going to help monitor all the questions, make sure we stay on track. And then everyone will get a recording of this webinar after it's done. So please look out for an email from Corey after the webinar is finished. So if we haven't connected, if this is the first time you're seeing me, hello, great to have you. Please find me on LinkedIn. My LinkedIn, what do you call this, profile is right there. And maybe I'll ask Corey to copy and paste this into the chat. And so let's connect, be fun. And then sometimes during webinars, I think of like resources, and when I'm answering questions, resources that I know. And so if at any point there's something I say that you'd like more information on, email me and I'll be happy to answer your questions and provide any resources as they come up. So let's get started. The agenda today, again, I'm going to move pretty quick. We're just going to do a brief chatbot overview just so we can have some shared language about what a chatbot is. Then the bulk of the webinar today will be showing examples of how chatbots work as a microlearning experience. Then we're actually going to build one. We'll spend a few minutes building one because a lot of times I think you'll get the concept pretty quickly, but then you'll undoubtedly be wondering, okay, well, how do I make one of these? And so we'll show you a demo of how to do that. And then we'll do a Q&A. We also have a special offer today where you can actually build, have us help you build a little functional chatbot as a microlearning demo that you can show off with colleagues, just, as a light bulb type of thing. Just, hey, what do you think about this? So happy to do that for you. So hang on to the end and we'll show you how that works. So let's get going. So first of all, what is a chatbot? A chatbot is a computer program designed to simulate a conversation with human users. So I'd like you to try this demo. I was kind of thinking about whether I wanted to show this demo because this demo can take a little bit of time and I want the webinar to move forward quickly. But let's try this. It's kind of fun. This is a trivia game done through a chatbot. And Corey has put, so you don't, of course, you can't click on the recording. So that's a link. But we fortunately put the links in the chat. So there are 3 ways to try this trivia game. You can try it on Microsoft Teams. So if you click on the link that says Microsoft Teams, the chatbot will appear and you have to say hi to get it started. You can do it as a web widget and that will just open a browser, and that's what I'll do here in a minute. Or you can try it via SMS. And what you do is you send that 626 number on the screen, hi, and it'll start. So it'll be fun if some of you want to try it in these different modalities so you can see the difference, but they're all the same content. So I'm actually going to try this with you. And if you're able to multitask, like I used to when I was younger, can't do that anymore, you can tell us how you're doing in the chat. Yeah, hi, Toby. Yeah, I know you've done this already, and you're probably at the top of the leaderboard. Star, what modality did you choose? Did you choose Teams or SMS? Yeah, that's one of the dangers of SMS is that the carriers we send the carrier the messages in the right order, but sometimes they appear in the wrong order. I'm sorry that happened to you. So some of you trying this on Teams, some of you trying this on web widget. I was thank you, Star, for trying this on SMS. If you are dialing in from outside the US, the SMS number might not work. So I'm going to try this too while you guys are playing. And we won't have time to go through this whole thing, but if you want to finish it later on, you can finish it later on. So I will answer some of these questions too. Now, since I've done this before, I kind of know the answers. Wouldn't that be embarrassing if I got something wrong? So a couple of things to note while you're trying this is that a lot of times when people think about chatbots, they think about a customer service widget that's on a website and it pops open and just asks, how can I help you? So that's probably the most common use case of a chatbot. The second most common use case, maybe they're neck and neck, is more of a sales chatbot where you go to some website and a chatbot pops open and tries to get you, tries to sell you something. So yes, those are all computer simulated conversations. When we talk about chatbots, a computer simulated conversation can be a much broader user experience than that. And that's what we try to show with some of these demos. Now, I want you to think about these 3 modalities. There's a purpose why I shared the 3 modalities. I'm playing this game right now through a web widget. So are you, some of you. So if I were to close my browser, which I'm going to do right now, and again, if you're multitasking, I'd invite you to maybe pause the game and you can play later. So if I'm playing this via web widget and I close my browser, it's gone. I'm done. If you are playing via Microsoft Teams or SMS, that's a big difference because let's say that you close Teams or turn off your phone for SMS, the chatbot's still there when you come back online. And that's really important because that enables whoever's designing the chatbot to stay connected with you. And what that allows, and this is a really important point when it comes to microlearning, that allows the chatbot designer to then engage you proactively. So for example, if I said, hey, I want to ask you a question on Friday about what you liked about the game, I can do that. if you are connected with a chatbot through Teams or through SMS. If I'm connected through a web widget, I can't do that because most likely the user has exited out of the browser. So keep that in mind. Depending on where you have people interact with the chatbot, it opens up different avenues for user experiences that you may want to design. So it's a really important point. Basically, anywhere that you can message, you can have a chatbot. So I use Teams here, but there are other similar platforms like Slack, Google Chat, WebEx Teams, Zoom. So anywhere, again, you can message, you can have a chatbot. So hopefully that makes sense. And again, I'm going to keep an eye on the chat. Questions, please ask questions along the way if you have them. So now with that point made, why would you consider this modality for learners, this modality of chatbots? Well, it's easy and accessible. So the chatbot lives where users already are. So if as an organization, you're already using Teams, I don't have to go to another location, which means I don't have to like download anything or create a username and password. It's right there. So I like to call that frictionless engagement. It's easy and accessible. And so again, wherever your people are, and that could include channels I already mentioned, Teams, Slack, Google, but it also could include Telegram or WhatsApp, personal messaging channels as well. Chatbots also are more engaging because it's a conversational interaction. So you can program interactive triggers like nudges. Here's a list of examples, reminders, survey questions. You can send links, you can send images and videos and things like that. You can send links. And so because it's conversational, you can engage that user over time. You'll just see consistently greater engagement rates with a chatbot. And lastly, they're easy to deploy and to manage when compared to other sort of application building and launching and developing and things like that. So chatbots are really it's a turnkey deployment for one or many chatbots, easy to measure effectiveness as well. When you launch a website, many of you may have built websites or managed websites, and you get some analytics about who's visiting my page and what are they clicking on, how long are they staying on the page. Most of us are familiar with analytics like that. With chatbots, you get similar analytics, like who's engaged with the chatbot, who's answering questions, how fast are they answering the questions. So you can do all this really interesting measurement to measure engagement as well. So these are some of the reasons why you would consider a chatbot as a part of your learning platform. Another big point, which I don't have here on this slide, is scalability. This is sort of, which should be on this slide, where a chatbot never sleeps. It can speak many languages, and so you can scale. You can almost clone yourself or your team and have the chatbot automate lots of those conversations. So that is sort of the primer on chatbots. I'm glad that some of you have tried it. Let's move on to the next part of the agenda. So I want to just ask this question because mainly this is a little bit selfish for me because I'm still learning. Microlearning has been to me a big buzzword. I'm curious how you define microlearning. I don't think there's technically a right answer, but if you could put in the chat just how you define microlearning, I'd be interested in, even if it's not a definition, some attributes or examples of microlearning would be useful. So Toby says bite-sized learning, great. Short, easy to access and consume nuggets. I like that. Chunks of learning. I like that. I like that too. Short bursts of learning. Under 5 minutes. Yeah, to me, it's kind of interesting what the standard of micro is. Micro just a few minutes? Is it 10 minutes? What are we comparing it to? Formal, informal. Michelle, I like. Hi, Michelle. Formal, informal. I'm going to talk about that here in a little bit. One small topic. So maybe, so there's time attributes. There's content attributes like time under 5 minutes, content, one topic, like a snack instead of a meal. Great. Thank you very much. That's wonderful. I have a quick poll for everybody. Let's see. Launch this. Okay, I'm smiling because I'm really working hard to multitask. So here's this poll. Do you have microlearning set up in your organization? So in the poll, boy, you are all very fast. I'm going to share the results. Let's see if I'm doing this right. Give me a thumbs up if you can see the results. So 42% of you say yes, 37% say no, and 21% say in progress. I'm sorry, Moika. It told me 100% of the people responded, but again, here's my lack of multitasking ability. So I apologize for those of you who are trying to vote. So yeah, so it sounds like between the yeses and the in progress, we're at about 63% of the group. That's really interesting. Put in the chat if you are no, like why not? Just for the, I'm interested in sort of the obstacles for microlearning within your organization. So please put something in there, too many priorities. Elizabeth says her definition comes from Shannon Tipton. Shannon is an expert at microlearning. We really admire her work. So, okay, let's move on to what the bulk of today's webinar is going to be. So I think I'm really glad because all of your definitions of microlearning fall within my understanding of microlearning. So I think that the rest of the content I'm feeling a little bit better about now. Thank you. Someone mentioned formal, informal. I think that's a really interesting design distinction especially for chatbot design. So I'm going to talk about 4 microlearning modalities. I'll briefly read them here, but I have a slide and some examples on each of these. The first is a formal scheduled lesson modules. The next one, these are a little bit out of order. Down here on the right, bottom right, informal nudges, reminders about material already learned. And so the difference between this one, formal scheduled lesson modules, is actually the chatbots delivering new material with an expectation the learner is going to learn something, whereas the informal nudges, the chatbots working as a reinforcement tool. And then performance support for on-demand learning in bite-sized chunks. And then this last one I think is really interesting is sort of what I call the concierge, where it's a combo of all these different things. So let's dive in and see what I mean. So the formal scheduled lesson modules, I have a screenshot here. This is spaced learning modules that are programmed by you. And so the second bullet point here is messages are sent on a set schedule or a schedule determined by the learner. So for example, you could say, to me, part of, and I don't know if anyone mentioned this in the chat, but innately in the definition of microlearning to me is not only the bite size, but it's also spaced learning. So if you do bite size, if I send you 50 bite-sized modules within an hour, to me, that's not microlearning, right? So part of the definition is spaced learning. And I think the space can be based on the context. It could be a couple hours, it could be weeks, based on the content and the context. And so to me, that means that if it's spaced, then you have a scheduling design issue, like, okay, how are we going to schedule these? And so it's, for a formal scheduled lesson module, you are putting the microlearning, you're in control of the microlearning cadence, or you're asking the learner to set their own schedule. So what this might look like, I'll just give you an example. I might say every Wednesday at 11 a.m., I'm going to send go back to the Teams or the SMS example of the chatbot. I can program the chatbot to say Wednesday at 11 a.m. on the user's local time, via Teams or SMS or Google, one of these channels where I can be connected with the user, I'm going to send a message. Just as if I was going to text them myself, I'm going to program the chatbot to send that message. So that's sending on a set schedule. Or I can have the chatbot be smart enough to say, hello, learner, I can send you these modules once a week. What day is best for you? And if the user says, well, Tuesdays are best, then you can have the learner set that schedule. So, I think that if you can program your chatbot to have the learner set the schedule, you'll see, my experience is that you'll see a little bit better engagement rates. It's not like exponential, but you'll see a little bit better engagement rates, because they're giving the chatbot permission to intrude on their day by sending them a message. But either way, you set a schedule. The messages can be interactive, just like this game that we played. That doesn't have to be a game. Of course, you can write any message that you want. But interactivity is more engagement. And I think there's a great learning benefit to having people have to answer a question. And then, of course, activities, because this is all technology, can be recorded and stored in an LMS. And so what can you store in an LMS? Well, you can, or an LXP or whatever learning record store you might have, an LRS, all these acronyms. You can store whether a message was sent, whether a message was replied to, whether there was a right answer. If you played that trivia game and if you earned a badge, you can record whether someone's earned a badge. Lots of things that the chatbot can capture that can be stored, recorded, and measured. So that is the formal scheduled lesson modules example. There's an informal nudges and reminders example, and this one I actually have a demo for. So Corey, I'll ask Corey to copy and paste these links in the chat so you can try this if you want. You don't have to try them, but you can if you'd like. So in this case, messages are written as reminders, and this is a point that I find often is undervalued with chatbots, but the chatbot can serve actually as a survey tool or an assessment tool about the training. In fact, because a chatbot is innately a conversation, you can have the chatbot very naturally ask a question like, hey, you went to that workshop 2 weeks ago. What did you think of the facilitator? How was the food? Upon reflection, how much have you been thinking about what you've been learning? How much have you applied what you've learned? And so rather than having a one-time SurveyMonkey experience that you're trying to get people to fill out once they're exiting some sort of formal learning workshop or something like that, you can program the chatbot to interact with them over time. And I think that can be a really powerful way to get, a better sense of what your learners are thinking in terms of feedback. So I'm going to try this too. Let's just make sure what you see. I'm going to use a web widget for this. So this is an example. So you kind of have to, this is a demo, so you have to put on your imagination hat. So there's different examples. I'm going to say, let's say I went to a unconscious bias training or e-learning. And then it's going to show me an example of what a follow-up might look like. So it's been 2 weeks since you completed the unconscious bias course. If you haven't yet, go back to this assessment, see if you've improved. Which principle have you found most helpful and why? So I can say, here is my answer. Copying out by not thinking of a better answer. But again, think about it. I'm using a web widget here, which is just convenient for me, but obviously it'd be best if this was on Teams or SMS or something like that. So you can see, hopefully that's pretty easy to see how you can design a user experience that can be this sort of nudging reminder tool. Okay, so that's that one. Toby asks, let me just go back, asks a good question. In this example, would it know if I typed unconscious bias? And would it know what I mean? Well, that brings up a broader topic of how smart can your chatbot be? That answer depends a little bit on what chatbot tool you're using. Most of us have had some experience with personal voice-based assistants at home, whether it's an Alexa device or a Google Home or Siri. And we know that computer-driven AI devices are still not emotionally intelligent. So your chatbot's not going to replace like a therapist or a coach for that matter. But they can be smart to recognize keywords, recognize common phrases, common answers, because If you design your chatbot and your reminders to be very pointed, then it's a better chance for the chatbot to understand and sort of comprehend a open-ended question. Oftentimes, you can just position the chatbot to ask an open-ended question, acknowledge that the answers that the user has answered, but the purpose of the open-ended question, there's two purposes. One is cognitively helping the user to answer a question and think through a question. But the second purpose is for you then to, on the back end, to read the answers so you can see what people are thinking. So it's really a benefit to you as an organization as well. So let's keep going. This third example, performance support for on-demand learning. To me, I still count this as microlearning because even though the learner's initiating it, it's still bite-sized. In fact, they want it to be bite-sized because for on-demand learning within the flow of work, rarely in the flow of work when someone needs help, are they saying, hey, I need help, I've got 2 hours to learn something. No, they might need something really bite-sized right now. So, so again, I'll ask Corey to copy and paste these examples into the chat. And I'd like to I'll try this one as well. And I'm going to show you this. So this is an example of a very light demo. Hopefully everyone has had some experience with Microsoft Word. We chose that because I think it's I think most people have had experience with Microsoft Word at some point. And so this is a chatbot designed to help with some basic functions of Microsoft Word. So the idea would be if this chatbot was accessible, and Microsoft Word, this is just an example, but let's say you have a CRM system or acronyms or just something like that where people might need some immediate help. So this is a menu-driven user experience. Click on a button below to learn more about that topic. And so, how do I insert an image? I can click on that and it can tell me right on demand how to do it. So it can describe me how to do it and also can send me a link to a video so I can watch someone do it. Simple example. Oh, also gives me a tip. So if I go back to what I want to talk about with this use case, menu-driven is great, especially if you are on a modality like Teams or Slack where you can program buttons, because it just makes it that much faster where I don't have to type. And this type of use case should live on the most accessible messaging channel for the user. So if it's on-demand learning in the flow of work, you don't want users to fumble through 15 different clicks to find the help. So having it be accessible, as easily accessible as possible is really important for this type of use case. Okay, so thank you for Corey for answering some of these questions. I'll cover some of the questions that we missed at the end here. And this is the last example here. So I am going to try this example on Teams, and I'll have Corey put this in the chat as well. So this is one I call the concierge. I'm really enamored by this user experience where it's sort of a combination of all three, where this chatbot, the idea is that it's just always on as a support to the learner, where yes, it's available as performance support, but from time to time, you can use it to send messages to your people. So let's try this together. I actually haven't. This is the whole multitasking thing again. So for those of you that don't have Teams, apologize that we don't have another modality for you. If you want to try this out, email me with what channel is best for you, and then we'll try to enable one for you. So when you get to it on Teams, just say hi to get it started. See what this looks like. So in this demo, I'm just assuming that this is going out to new hires. So congratulations on completing new hire orientation. My name is Sally. I'll be helping you apply what you've learned over the coming months. Those of you that are trying this on your own, apologize that I'm reading this. There might be some of you that don't have Teams, and so that's why I'm showing it on my computer. So what is your first name? I'll put in Vince. See what it says. Thanks. I'll be checking in with you once a week with tips and reminders as you continue your journey here at Acme Company. At any time, you can text menu to access resources on demand. So this is what I mean, where this is a dual modality where the chatbot's setting expectations that it's going to send me tips and reminders and maybe even learning modules once a week in a micro-learning type of style, or I can text menu at any time to access this resources. So, let's say I'm curious about courses in our LMS. This is a demo, so this is where some of the demoware verbiage will come in. This is just a simple demo. So in real life, when someone clicks on a button, they'll see content about that topic. Click next. Actually, type next. And then I think this demo will show me an example of what a weekly reminder could be. But remember, at the beginning of the webinar, I said, when you are setting a schedule, you can either set it yourself or have the chatbot ask the user to set it. So I wanted to show you a demo of what that looked like. So I want to be as useful as I can. So what day of week would be best for me, for me to send you messages? So I'll say Thursday. And I think it gives me one more preference. What time of day do you choose? And I'll say afternoon. Now you can make it smarter. You could say what time of, exactly what time of day. So here, afternoon, Sally says she'll send me messages at 4 o'clock. You can have it be as personalized as people, setting up the exact time. So this last one, to give you a taste of the messages I'll send, here's the first idea I'd like to share. Remember that the marketing team publishes a new blog post each week. It's a great resource to keep up to date. So again, this one, there's a link that goes to the Mobile Coach blog. But the idea is that you can sit back and then start brainstorming about what types of microlearning nuggets, what type of microlearning topics can you send? And if you've got people connected with this concierge constantly, you don't have to decide that right now. You could decide over time. And so I think that's why this, to me, is a really compelling use case for chatbots. So those are the 4 different modalities. Let's just kind of review them. A formal scheduled lesson modules, informal nudges and reminders, performance support for on-demand learning, and then this concierge idea. So we're going to do the next poll. If I can find it. Oh, I never stopped sharing the first poll. Okay, here's the next poll. I'll do a better job of actually making sure people can answer the poll. I'm really curious, out of these 4, which of these would fit your organization the best? So if you can answer the poll and then maybe put in the chat, why? Give us a little color commentary just so that others can see what you're thinking and comparing what different organizations might be doing. So, okay, I've got 55% of you. I'll just give it another 10 seconds to answer the question. We should have had an option, all of the above. So sorry if we didn't do that. If that's what you wanted. I'm going to end the poll and share it. Just give you another second. Okay, I didn't get all of you answering, but I think most of you who are intending to answer did answer. So let's share the results. So most of you said the concierge. I'm glad. I think I probably sold you on that. I love that. I think the idea is really compelling. So it also could be recency bias since it's the last one that we went over. So 15% said formal scheduled lesson modules. To me, that's like a very traditional use case. Informal nudges and reminders, 19%. Performance support, 19%, and 46% of you said the concierge. Thank you. That's really, really interesting feedback. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how this would be built. So I think everyone kind of gets the idea. Before I do this, though, I'm going to pause and ask Corey, have there been questions that I should answer now before we do this section of it?
I think I've caught most of the questions, and Sterling came in and helped with some too. But I'm just scrolling up to see. Oh, actually, Toby asked a great question. Do you get all these modalities in one package?
I'm not quite sure if I fully, so I'll answer the question how I understand it. And Toby, if I'm misinterpreting your question, please clarify. So in Mobile Coach, the platform, we're an authoring tool, so you can author whatever you want in our platform. So these aren't like packages within Mobile Coach. It's really a design function. In other chatbot platforms, I think that's the same. There might be some platforms out there that have pre-built templates. I think Arist might be like that. I saw someone mentioning them. There's these templated journeys. So I'm not as familiar with some of their templates. Yeah, but for Mobile Coach, you can just author whatever you want. So the idea and my assumption with this webinar is that you're in charge of your experience. And so you think about what would be best for your learners, and then you find a platform that can deliver that for you. I will show you how the Mobile Coach platform works very briefly. That's this next part of the webinar here. So I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. Speaking of Microsoft Word, this is a Google Doc, so word processing. This is a script template for microlearning, for a microlearning user experience. And so this is how I would work. Typically, I would first work and just focus on the writing. Just as a side, a lot of people ask me, what's the number one factor in whether a chatbot's effective or not? And my answer is pretty consistent. It's the quality of the writing. Of course, the technology is really important because that's what's going to deliver things, but to your users, they don't care what technology you use. They're going to be consuming the messages, and if the chatbot doesn't feel valuable, it's going to kind of be off the mark, and whether it feels valuable to them or not is based on the writing. So I start with the writing, and to me, you can use a spreadsheet, you can use just a notepad. So this is just an example where I have a very simple table set up where on the first column, I'm just making myself notes of when I want sort of these messages or attributes about the message. And then on the second column is where I'm brainstorming what the messages are. So here you've seen, this is very similar to that concierge example. It might be exactly the same, I can't remember. Yeah, I think it's exactly the same. Congratulations on completing the new hire orientation. So I'm just writing it here, and then I can write what I want to be sent. It's week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. I can extend this to 52 weeks if I want. And then I have a goodbye script. And I want to show you this too, because when I mentioned about surveying, this is a good example of that. So at the end of the user experience, and the chatbot might say, that's it for now. Thanks for participating. Can I ask you to rate this experience on a scale of 1 to 10? And it could be, and of course that could be extended to an open-ended question, like tell me one thing you liked the best, tell me what you didn't like. So it can be a very natural part of the chatbot experience. Pretty simple, right? So then in the Mobile Coach platform, to show you how this works, and then Corey, where should I go for this in the platform?
Yeah, so you have a link in your Zoom.
Thank you.
Welcome.
All right, I'm gonna just give me a second to find this. I'm actually gonna log in as a, and I will show you how this is to be done. Okay, here it is. All right, so this is the Mobile Coach authoring tool. So if we compare it with, let's just kind of compare it with, it's easy read. Gosh, look at all these browsers I have open. So hi there, congratulations on completing the new hire. And this. There is, so you can see that here. And the way that the Mobile Coach platform works is that you author your messages in the script column. And then you put all the automation in the controls, conditions, actions, and calendar columns. So if you think about this first message, hi there, congrats, blah, blah, blah. What do I want the chatbot to do? Well, I want the chatbot to send the next message because there's, you know, that's what I want this to do. And so over here, over in the conditions, you can see what's going to happen when this message is triggered, it's going to send the next rule to start off, what's your name? So let's look at that. To start off, what's your name? Now, what do I want the chatbot to do? Well, there's a couple considerations. What if the user doesn't answer? Do I want the chatbot just to be stranded forever? Maybe. Do I want the chatbot to nudge the user if, like, after 2 hours, like, hey, I didn't hear from you. What's your first name? Do I want the chatbot just to wait for a couple of days? So these are some of the design questions you'll have to answer. So we have that in our control. So here I'm going to say, I'm going to wait until the next scheduled rule. So in other words, if the user doesn't answer right away, maybe they get distracted. They get a phone call. You know, how are we supposed to know? So I'm going to just have the chatbot wait until I schedule a rule to say, you know, to override it. So that's what that means. And then if they do answer, I want to capture their response as their first name. So I'm just doing a very high level demo here. By the way, if this is really interesting to you and you want to, you've got lots of questions about buttons and how this works, let me know. We'll be happy to give you a more detailed platform demo. I'm just trying to give you an idea. So here, when the user responds, we're going to set the user field to whatever the response is for the first name, and then send the next rule. So over here, I'm setting a user field with their response and the full name response. You know, it could be first name, should be first name, but it doesn't matter. And then send the next rule. So this next rule, 00.3, let's go look at that. So here, thanks, and then first name's it's a variable because it's in a bracket. So because we saved it as a variable or as a custom field, then we're able to populate that in this message. And so hopefully those of you that tried that concierge demo, when you told Sally your name, it came back and that's how that worked. So that gives you an example of how our authoring tool works. Over here on the calendaring, again, so if you think about those 4 different modalities, I'm just going to briefly show you some things. So if I said that first modality of a set scheduled set messages, so I could say, okay, I want to send a certain message on the day of the week. We have 4 different ways here. I can schedule a day of the month, program day, or a calendar. But let's say day of the week on a Wednesday at 11 a.m. And so if that's me scheduling it, that's how I would schedule it. There are ways to configure it based on what we showed you. If you ask the user what day is best for you, then it can dynamically create that calendar. I won't take the time to show you that here today. Now, if you wanted to have a menu, then what you could do is under your settings, if you enable buttons, and then in that script view, then you can create buttons and then configure the buttons. And so that's how you would do a menu. So those are some of the common ways. If we go back to the slides. Yeah, so if you see, we covered how you would configure a set schedule. We didn't cover how we do interactive quizzes, but conceptually, hopefully you can see if you do like a multiple choice question, if you think about that trivia game, then in the conditions, you can say, well, if the right answer is B and they answer B, give them 20 points and say they got the right answer. If they say C, send them a message that say the answer was incorrect. So that's how that would be configured. The informal nudges is the same way. You can just, that's authored the same way. Performance support. Performance support's great with menus, and so you would enable buttons and create those buttons if you want. And then there is a way in our platform to upload FAQs and knowledge bases so that people have FAQs and they're answering questions. The chatbot can automatically send those answers. And the concierge is a combination of all those things. So, so what we wanted to offer to the group today is in the follow-up email, you're all going to get a Word version of this script template. And if you want to fill it out and sort of write your messages and send it back to me, we're going to use our platform and make it functional for you. So hopefully, Please don't send us 20 pages of scripts. This is just something we want to help give you some tangible takeaway from the webinar that you can show people, because we've just seen that for people to really get it, they have to experience it. So we want to help you do that. So if you want to, you can fill out a version of the script template. We'll make it functional on Microsoft Teams or web widget. If you really need it on Slack or Google Chat, just let us know. We'll see what we can do. So that's our offer, and we'd love for you to take us up on it, to give you just some fun, functional prototype that you can show off with your colleagues. I'm also going to invite you to try out our HR courses. So these aren't truly microlearning, because some of these are not bite-sized. They're like 15 to 25 minutes long. Corey will put the link in the chat. There's 9 topics. They include like corporate ethics, phishing awareness, which is a really good one. There's how to handle a tough conversation. There's sexual harassment training. There's 9 different topics. When you go to that landing page, it will say that they cost money, but if you put in the coupon code microlearning, you'll get it for free. So give that a try if you'd like. We'd be happy to give you a free access to some of those training courses, just so you can see chatbots in action to help people learn. So that is the content. Thank you so much for being here. I'm happy to hang around and answer questions that I haven't answered. Again, I'll ask Corey if there were questions that came up that I wasn't able to answer.
I think Sterling and I caught them all. So anyone, if you feel like your question wasn't answered, or if you want more details, because we did, we did quick answers in the chat. So if you want more of an answer, please raise your hand, or if you want to like rewrite and just let us know.
I do see a question from Star in the Q&A, so I'll answer that. Do all chatbots have the problem of messages arriving in the wrong order? No. So again, Star, for those of you that missed it, Star tried the very first demo on SMS. So SMS is a channel where there's a lot of the quality of the delivery that's outside of our control, because we'll send the carrier's messages in order, but sometimes they'll send them in the wrong order. So that is an issue specific to SMS. Now, there are ways to mitigate that, Star. So if you know SMS is going to be your channel, in our platform, you can space out the messages a little bit longer. So instead of like 3 to 4 seconds, which is our normal, you make it 8 to 10 seconds, and that almost always removes that problem. In that demo, that particular demo, since we've got people on web widget and Teams, we've made the messages move pretty fast, which is why you experienced that problem on SMS. But that's a great question. I'm glad I could clarify that. So other questions? Great. Well, everyone will get a recording to this. In the email, Corey will summarize the offer as well, including the coupon code. Thank you so much for joining. It was a pleasure. I hope you all learned something. I realized this webinar, ironically, was not microlearning. It was 47 minutes long. Next time, we'll shoot for a 5-minute webinar. All right. See you guys.